Cargo bikes were first developed in the Netherlands in the early 20th century, and from there they spread quickly throughout the rest of Scandinavia and to a lot of other parts of Europe. They're just bikes that are very utilitarian. You can carry a lot of things and do a lot of things on them. However, they never really took off in the United States, right? They're heavier, they're harder to pedal, they're not as fun, and Americans just up till now really have preferred cars and trucks. However, with the invention of the e-bike, e-cargo utility bikes are really starting to take off here, and for good reason. It's not just this slow, heavy bike, it's now a fun bike that can do a lot of different things. So the question is, how did the Co-op Cycles Generation E1.1 do in our testing as a cargo utility bike? Let's dive into our testing and see. All right, so before we jump into our testing of the Generation E1.1, I want to walk you through some of the key specs, components, things that you get when you buy the bike, right? So first off, this is a Class 1 e-bike. That means it's pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour. There is no throttle that just puts you on and just boosts you. You do have to pedal throughout. Now with that, they paired it with a Bafang 350 watt 80 newton meters of torque rear hub motor, and the battery is a 36 volt 11.6 amp hour or 417 watt hour battery. Now you'll notice that's a little smaller battery and motor than what you generally get on some of these other cargo bikes. And one of our first questions was, how is a 350 watt hub motor going to perform in our hill test? How is it going to perform in our circuit test? Stay tuned to find out. It actually surprised us a little bit. Now, moving to the cockpit, okay? First of all, when I just take a step back and look at this bike, one of the things that just hits me really hard is just how nice it looks and how simple it looks, and the cockpit follows that, right? You have everything that you generally need. You've got your brakes, the shifters are underneath the handlebars, so they're really easy to use. You have your reflectors, you have your light, but it's simple, it's easy to use. So if you're someone who hasn't been on a bike for a while, there's not a huge learning curve, and I really like that. So now from a spec position on the components, I want to start out with the brakes. It's an e-bike, you're going to be going faster, you need to be able to stop. I like how REI spec this with Tektro hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors. They have really good stopping power. I felt very comfortable the entire time. They also put a Shimano 7-speed rapid fire shifter with the drivetrain. And I like the fact that they have 7 gears. Kind of one thing that I think they could improve is this front chainring. It's a little bit small. And so you're gonna see this in our testing. So there's a little bit of a spoiler, but the bike kind of ghost pedals a little bit once you get up in assist levels 3, 4, and 5. And that really is because of this chainring. So I do think they could have spec'd that a little bit differently. And frankly, that's something you could take into a bike shop and potentially change out if you would like. The reason why I think they did that is, as I mentioned, there's no throttle, right? Usually you have a throttle here. No throttle. So on a cargo utility bike, if you've loaded this up and you've got, it has a 300-pound weight capacity, this rear rack, you can fit up to 59 pounds. If you're loaded up, sometimes it can be kind of hard to start. So a throttle is nice there. They don't have a throttle. So that front chainring being a little smaller does make it easier to get off the line and get pedaling. And the battery and the motor, they engage very well. So I actually think it's okay that this doesn't have a throttle, given how well it pedals. Now, from a comfortability standpoint, REI spec basically made this to where it's a one size fits most. So we fit testers from 5'2" to 6'4". They say right here 5 foot to 6'3". Totally agree with them. I think you could go a little past, and it is very comfortable. It has this really low step over height. In fact, for me, I'm 5'11". I can step over very easily, and I can actually, when the saddle's all the way down, I can stand all up. And so for people who haven't ridden a bike in a while, that just makes it really easy and just makes you feel a little more comfortable when you're getting out. So I really do like that. with what they did there. And at only 54 pounds with these 20-inch by 2.4-inch tires, this front shock, the bike just feels very comfortable. And again, it's a cargo utility bike, but it's actually really fun. So for me, what I found is, I really do like so many things about this bike. It's a bike that has so much potential that if REI can just swap out kind of that one point there, this could be the bike that is in your garage and you can take it anywhere around town to do anything that you want to do. Okay, for the electric bike report brake test, what we do is we take a bike, we get it up to 20 miles per hour, and then we stop. We do that 3 times and we measure the distance for each stop and then average them. And when we do this, we are seated in the saddle, so we are not getting up, throwing our weight back anymore like we used to be, because we're just trying to replicate what an average biker would get if something jumped out in front of them and they had to stop very quickly. So with that being said, the results. The Generation E1.1 stopped at an average of 18.5 feet, and that was with a 230-pound rider. So it was not a lightweight, it was someone with some weight stopping, and frankly, that was a really good result. Really solid stopping power coming from those Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, 180 millimeter rotors, and they just did a good job. Now, a couple things to note. Number one, they are only 2-piston brakes. If you're someone who's really worried, I guess you could throw on some 4-piston brakes, but to be honest, I don't think you need to. At just 54 pounds, and we loaded this up with a heavy rider, stopped really well. So we think they spec'd them really good with that. The other thing to note is these brakes do not have a cutoff sensor. So sometimes e-brakes will have that where if you come up and as soon as you touch the brakes, it cuts off the power to the motor. That is more important if you have a rear hub motor that just kind of keeps going for a second or two after you stop pedaling. We actually did not have a problem at all with this not having a cutoff sensor because of how fine-tuned that Bafang rear hub motor was. So we're not knocking them for that, just something that we want you to be aware of. And to be honest, when I was riding it and all our other testers were riding it, no one mentioned or had any issues with that. And then finally, with the Tektro brakes, we do expect to have less maintenance on those. We've had Tektro, we still have some bikes that we've had for 2 years and just beating them as much as we can. And we haven't had to do any brake bleeds or do much maintenance on the Tektros. Typically on some of the other off-brands, you do have to do some maintenance after even just 4 or 5 months. So glad to see that there's Tektro on there. And even if when you do come to need service, the nice thing about having a more name brand brake is that it's easier to get it serviced. The bike shop is most likely gonna have your parts, and then obviously this is an REI model, you'll be able to take it into an REI shop and get it serviced. So overall, 2 thumbs up, great job on the brakes. Okay, on to the circuit test. The Electric Bike Report circuit test is a 1-mile loop around our office here where we take the bike and we go from no assistance all the way to max assistance and every step in between to get a really good sense of how the motor engages at each different passenger assist level. And so in this case, there's 5 different assist levels. We went around at 0 all the way up to 5. And what we're really looking for is a nice consistent output in power. And so, if in this case, we started out at 12.8 miles at 0 assist level. As a side note, that's actually really good, right? Like this is Griffin taking it around. So he's 230 pounds and he still pedaled at 12.8 miles per hour, which is honestly almost like a normal bike. And I chalk that up to that front chainring being a little smaller. It tended to do better in the lower assist levels, even in assist level 0. So that's a positive there. Now where it starts to struggle, right? So it goes from 12.8 and 0 to 15.2 and 1, 15.5 in assist level 2, 16.6 in 3, 17.3 and 4, and 17.5 and 5. So you can see there is an increase. It does get better, but Griffin wasn't actually able to reach the 20 miles per hour. And that's not a function of the motor not having the power or the torque or outputting it through the programming in the controller. It really is just simple front chainring, that's it. So I think if they just swap that out for something larger than that 42 tooth chainring, easily get up to 20 miles per hour because the motor really does a good job. It felt very smooth, very consistent. And we think they tuned the motor really well. In fact, in those lower assist levels, 0, 1, 2, the bike is zippy, it is fun, it handles like a bike. And like I mentioned in the introduction, at those levels, this is something that I can easily go out on the bike paths by myself and have a fun time. It really is just in those higher assist levels where you start to ghost pedal. So that's where as you turn, you're just not pushing against anything. And so it doesn't give you any assist and you're just spinning out. So if they could fix that, this bike would be phenomenal in our circuit test. Onto the electric bike report range test. Now in this test, we take the bike and we see how far it can go both under max pedal assist, so this is pedal assist 5, and then the minimum pedal assist, and that is pedal assist 1. Now quick note, on the minimum pedal assist, we try to find the assist level where the bike feels like an e-bike. There's sometimes we get bikes where they've set up kind of the motor and the controller to where in assist level 1, you get really no assist, and so it's a bike. In theory, you could go for 1,000 miles, right? We're trying to answer a real world test of what's the range of this bike? How far can I go? And if you're having to slog an e-bike without any assist, we don't count that. So if that was the case, we would move to assist level 2, assist level 3, wherever we need to go. In this case, assist level 1 was fine. You saw in the circuit test, Griffin averaged 15 plus miles per hour, and it did great. So again, the max pedal assist, we did assist level 5, min pedal assist, we did assist level 1. Now, the results. The claimed range from REI is 30 to 40 miles, and our results actually back that up and do a little better. And so our rider was about 150 pounds on this, so a little bit on the lighter side, but we did get 35 miles on the min, and then 45 miles on the max pedal assist. And so good range, a little bit above spec, and that is something that we like to see. I have a feeling that REI is trying to give the range that you would get if you really loaded this thing up with like 250 to 300 pounds. But either way, 35 to 45 miles is a great range. I mean, for me, if I was using this as a commuter, my ride to and from the office is 7 miles. And so I could almost go an entire week without swapping out that battery. And so I think they did a really good job. The battery's 417 watt hours, and with that 350 watt rear hub motor, you can go for quite a ways. In future models, I'd actually be curious to see if REI figures out a way to spec this with potentially a larger battery or 2 batteries. Not that I think you need it, but I think it could be interesting. But overall, they did a really good job on the range, and we were very happy with it. All right, time now for what is our most popular test, which is the Hell Hole Hill Climb. With this hill test, what we're doing, we're climbing up Hell Hole, which is 1/3 of a mile long and a 12% grade. I mean, simply put, it is steep as hell, hence why they call it Hell Hole, right? And on bikes where we're testing the throttle only, we're not doing that with this one. There's actually no expectations to make it up on throttle only. On passenger assist level 5, which is what we tested the Generation E1.1, most bikes do make it. So how did this bike do? It actually did very well. It climbed Hell Hole in 1 minute, 31 seconds at an average speed of 11.9 miles per hour. Now, that is about 10 seconds below our average. And for a cargo utility bike, that's pretty good. I mean, bottom line, this is not the fastest bike going up a hill, but I mean, I was the one who did this hill test. And no, it didn't like crazy impress me. Like I was flying up the hill like some of these 750 watt, fat tire e-bikes that really you can just put down the throttle and go. It's not that feeling. It was a very natural feeling climbing. But frankly, I feel very confident climbing just about anything on this bike, and that is really cool. So again, not the fastest, but one of the easier bikes to climb with. In fact, I didn't even have to put this into 5th gear. I stayed, the highest I got was 4th gear. And so what I think the combination of components that produce these results, first of all, that rear hub motor. This is a test that tests the torque of a motor. And so the fact that this is only 350 watts isn't really quite telling the story, because it produces 80 Newton meters of torque. Definitely enough torque to climb a very steep hill. The bike only weighs 54 pounds. So yes, it's rolling resistance on the flats. That's not a big deal, but as soon as you start to climb, weight makes it a much harder thing to do. So being lighter weight with a motor that has a lot of torque makes this climb really well. And then finally, and I know I've talked about this kind of in more of a negative light with our other tests, but in this case, this front chainring actually helps it climb hills a little bit easier. Because it's that smaller chainring, easier to pedal, it does make it easier to go up a hill. And so that's a positive there for that. Do I still think they could have made it a little bigger? Yeah, because I could have dropped down into seventh gear. But bottom line, this does climb well. It's not the speed demon, but I would never expect that out of a 350 watt hub motor. I would say for it being a 350 watt hub motor, this bike outperformed our expectations in our hill test. All right, so there is a lot that we like about the Co-op Cycles Generation E1.1. We think that REI, in their entry into the e-bike space, has nailed so many things, and they really see the value in a short wheelbase cargo utility e-bike. And frankly, we also see that value. Personally, I would recommend a bike this type, a cargo utility bike, in almost every household. And I think that's where we're going. These bikes can be used for cargo, going to get groceries, doing deliveries. You can put your kids on them, pedal around with them. Frankly, with this one, you can even ride solo on the bike path and just have a ton of fun. That's what these bikes do. They're not just utilitous, but they really are fun if they're set up and done well. And with this bike specifically, at just $1,500 price range, they might change that. We just think that brings a lot of value to the table. You saw in our testing how it did well, but frankly, it could have done even better. And really, kind of the bottom line question, would we recommend this bike? And I will say yes, with a caveat. If you can take it into the bike shop and swap out that front chainring, it won't cost that much, but I do think it's needed. It's not something that we've been able to test yet. I'm hoping that REI will let us keep the bike for a little bit longer. If they do, we're gonna throw a couple different chain rings on, and we'll update our written review to show you how it improves performance. But I'm pretty sure that if you did that, it would turn this bike into a really fun cargo utility e-bike. The only other area that I think I'd like to see REI improve on, and that's the accessories that you can get. When you go to their site, when you look around, you don't have a kid's seat, you don't have baskets, you don't have some of the things that you see with like the rad wagons, the rad runners, that you can just load up like crazy. I have a feeling that REI is going to be doing that in the future. Again, this is their entry into the e-bike space. And really, if I'm looking at it, I'd say they nailed 98% of the bike. Missed on those few little things, but once they kind of tighten that up and know that, this is going to be a fantastic bike going forward. With all that being said, I hope you found this review helpful. And if you did, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, if you have additional questions or want to learn more about the bike, down below, you'll see links to our in-depth review where we cover everything about the bike. And then obviously you can also leave questions in the comments. So, with the Electric Bike Report, I'm Justin Taylor. I hope this review is helpful, and I hope to see you out on the trails.